Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace, love, and blessings of Allah be with you. Welcome to Ramadan Transformation, day number 17. Today, we're going to look at the power of insight. The power of insight. You know, the last couple of days, we've been talking about presence, what presence is, ihsan and its connection with presence, 3 ways from the ihsan hadith that shows us how to be present. And then we looked at the idea of permanent presence and how you can never really turn your thoughts off. So if the aim isn't to be permanently present, like that, maybe that's like the kind of aim, but there's a much more immediate, much bigger, much more enormous benefit of presence that I want to share with you today. And that is that the true purpose of presence is that it puts you in a position to have insight, a sight from within. In Arabic, insight is basira. In Quranic terminology, it's basira. And actually, this whole Ramadan transformation, the aim of it is to help you see some things about yourself in the hope that you will have basira, in the hope that you will have an insight about how life works and about how you work. So what is an insight? And I want to draw a distinction here between these two things. Insight versus information. Insight versus information. So information is, you know, I can teach you stuff and that becomes information. And if you learn it, you know, that's it. It's basically that's all that's required. This is how most courses work, all right? For those of you who saw the Taqwa Transformation TV show, or for those of you who are at the event or who are come to my live events, there's this concept that I explain, which is that this is how most courses work, is like this. Most courses, there's you, right? There's you. And the teacher is going to send all of this information your way. And you've got to learn all of that information. And then hopefully, maybe, inshallah, maybe 15% of that information will stick. So this is the information model. That's what information looks like. I teach you stuff, you need to try and learn it and understand it, and maybe after you've learned it and understood it, some of it will stick, inshallah. So that's the information model. That's not the model I use when I teach or when I coach. Remember, this is Quran coaching, not Quran teaching. So my aim is not to share with you information. My aim is to do something different. My aim is, this is you. What I want to see happen is this. I want to see you have an insight. Little red dot. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I get this and that and that and that. And it all makes sense now. And all of a sudden, you see something you never saw before. And now you have all of these insights. You now understand how life works. You can now go and teach the courses, right? It's generative. You see what you have one insight and it generates all of these other kind of new perspectives and transformations and ways of seeing life. That is the insight model, right? So this is the insight model. This is the information model where I try and teach you stuff and you forget most of it. This is the insight model where I aim to help you see something you never saw before that generates all of this new information that you know I didn't even teach you, but that you started seeing for yourself. So actually, if you notice, the whole course that I've been teaching you came from a big insight I had around the nature of thought and feeling, and the fact that, you know, the inside out paradigm, the fact that thought causes feeling. From that one thing, all of these Ramadan transformation sessions have been built on that one insight, right? So it's like I had that one insight about the inside out paradigm, and now I can see all of these other implications of that insight. Okay. So what's this got to do with presence? When you have a clear mind, when you have a quiet mind, you're in a position to have insight. When you have a noisy mind, when you're worrying about the past, when you're worrying about the future, or feeling remorse about the past, when you're not present, when you have a noisy mind, when your mind is full of insecure enough thought, you're not able to have insight because you're looking in the wrong direction. Now, when I say you're looking in the wrong direction, remember, I mean something very specific that we talked about in an earlier session, which is this. This is what I mean. Either feeling comes from thought or feeling comes from somewhere else. This is true and this is false. If you are looking in this direction, if you're looking in this direction, then that's ego. That's nafs. And if you're looking in this direction, that pretending that feeling comes from something other than thought, not only is it ego nafs, but as you know, it's impossible. It never worked that way. It never happened that way. The reality is feeling comes from thought. So that's what I call looking in the wrong direction. And this is what I call looking in the right direction, which is looking at your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the direction of your ruh and your true self and your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the purpose of presence is to quiet your mind, to have insight. And I want to tell you something about this. You don't need to search for Allah. You don't need to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to quiet your mind and look within and find the part of yourself that has always been deeply connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't need to search for Allah. You can't find Allah out in the world. If you want, instead of searching for Allah, quiet your mind, look within, and find the part of you that has always been deeply connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the purpose of a clear mind. That is the purpose of presence. You quiet your mind, and then all of a sudden you'll have an insight about the nature of life, the nature of your connection with Allah, the nature of your mind. And the moment you have that insight, what happens is that will then change you from the inside out. You will then go into the world, and everything for you, it reorders all of your thoughts when you have an insight like that. So the purpose of presence, the purpose of living in a state of presence, is you have a quiet mind, you have an insight, and then that, usually what happens is sooner or later you'll have an insight about the nature of presence and about the nature of thought that just makes you present a lot more of the time anyway. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله الذي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. May the peace, love, and blessings of Allah be with you always.